Okay, it's 2 minutes after 1. We will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Xiaohan Bao Smith with the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. We are very excited today to have our president to give us an introduction to the work of Michigan Historic Preservation Network. Before we get started, I would like to go over some tips about Zoom. First of all, if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box as you think of them. All the questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. And if you don't see the Q&A box, it should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If it's not there, please wiggle your mouse. It should show up. And please use the chat window to feel free to share your comments or resources. And please participate in the survey after the webinar concludes. If this is your first time attending our webinar, we are the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. We advocate for Michigan's historic places to contribute to our economic vitality, sense of place, and connection to the past. And you will learn a lot more today from Janet's presentation. If you are not a member yet, please consider joining us at www.mhpn.org. This webinar series is supported in part by an award from the Michigan Arts and Culture Council. And it is my great pleasure to introduce you our speaker today, Janet Krieger. She is founding member and current president of the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. Janet graduated from the University of Michigan in 1972 with a Bachelor of Arts in American History. In 1976, she graduated from Columbia University with a Master of Science in Historic Preservation. For 12 years after graduation, Janet worked for the Michigan State Historic Preservation Office, now part of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. At one time or another, she was responsible for every federally mandated program area. Janet helped found the Michigan Historic Preservation Network in 1981. Of MHPN's accomplishments, Janet personally is mostly proud of winning legislative approval of amendments that kept the state enabling legislation PA 169 of 1970 up to date, inaugurating commissioner training workshops in 1989, winning legislative approval for the first state 25% preservation tax credit in 1999, and then helping win it back in 2020. Accepting protective easement starting in 2006. Providing gap financing for under-resourced project starting in 2009. Helping design the revolving fund programs in 2013. And holding the statewide conference for 43 consecutive years. Janet maintains her credentials under the professional qualification standards set by the U.S. Secretary of Interior, 36 CFR Part 61, for architectural history. In recognition of over 25 years of work in Michigan's preservation movement, she was awarded honorary membership in the American Institute of Architects in 1999. In 2005, she was named by the Michigan Historic Preservation Network as the year's Lifetime Achievement Award winner. Additionally, she was recognized as a 2012 Distinguished Volunteer by the Historic Society of Michigan. And with that, let's turn it over to Janet.
Thank you, Shauhan. Bravo, we're up. Shauhan, thank you for the introduction. I would also like to take a moment not only to thank Shauhan for the introduction, but to thank the board of the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. We've got a superb board. And also both Shauhan Bausmith and Cindy Brunchens, who hold down the fort at the office. There is no way that the work of the MHPN could be done without the involvement of these people, and also a good number of volunteers who do innumerable tasks for us. It really is a group effort. As we have surfaced from the pandemic, and that has been with the usual difficulties to keep the doors open and the lights on and the webinars on and the newsletter out, it's taken all of these people to do that. And also, I thank the people who are on the webinar with us and all our members. So this is an introduction to the work of the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. In talking with Shauhan about this session, it was that for those of you who regularly come to the webinars, and you always hear at the start, we're the Michigan Historic Preservation Network, but it seemed appropriate to do a session on the work that we do together. So that is the genesis of this presentation today, which I'm very happy to give. And as Shauhan said, the entire webinar series is funded in part by the Michigan Arts and Culture Council. We are very pleased to have their support. Shauhan already read our mission statement. This mission statement actually works for me really well, because if you say it slowly enough and with a great deal of commitment and emotion, it sounds like you're not repeating your mission statement. It sounds like you're speaking from your heart. So I'm going to read this in the way that I always do when someone simply asks me, what is the Michigan Historic Preservation Network? I look at them in the eyes and I say, the MHPN since 1981 has advocated for Michigan's historic places. They're the ones that contribute to our economic vitality in the state. They establish a sense of place and distinguish one community from another, and it connects us to the past. Sounds like it's not your mission statement. Sounds like what you feel, and it is. My personal tagline, and this is the one that we stamped on the back of our Pewabic tiles that we had struck for our 40th anniversary, tagline says, protecting the irreplaceable. That's really brief, and I think it packs a punch. Since 1981, the MHPN has been presenting programs of relevancy to you and your work. And I hope that many of you on the show today, webinar today, have taken advantage of our programs. I'm going to start with the statewide preservation conference. All of the work that we do is important, but the statewide preservation conference has a lot of other things that hang on to it in terms of the programming that we supply for you. It's the largest gathering of preservationists in the state and our partners each year, hands down. First and foremost, what the conference does, because it's held in a different community each year, in the 43 consecutive years that we've given this conference, I've been at all 43, we have used probably 30 different communities. We take the conference from place to place. First and foremost, this is a way for you to experience the cities in Michigan at an in-depth level that you really don't get any other way. The hosts vie to have the conference in their communities, and they pull out the stops. It's the best tours, it's the best speakers, and you meet the mayor. And this is how you really get to know your state when you join the conference each year. I'll just look at the few of our most recent ones to give you a sense of where we've been. So we were in Ann Arbor in 2010. That was our 30th anniversary. You can see on the marquee of the Michigan Theater, welcome MHPN, happy 30th. We were very pleased that they did that for us. We also used the Michigan League on the central campus of the University of Michigan. It's a splendid 1927 collegiate Gothic inspired structure, really lovely environment. Celebrating sustainable communities was our theme that year. We were in Midland in 2015. That was where we really unveiled the commitment that we've had for quite some time to mid-century modernism. Now, back in 2015, there were still people who would say, nah, mid-century modern, like, is it really important, or I don't get it, or I don't like it? But we made that the centerpiece of the conference in Midland, where the whole place is filled with mid-century modern evidence, many of the buildings being by Alden Dow, who is a favorite son of the community of Midland. And we did an entire symposium embedded in the conference itself. We used the buildings on the campus of Northwood University. We were at Nada Hotel and Conference Center, which was built in the early 70s, and then at many buildings, but also at the Griswold Communication Center, which is the building on the bottom, 1972. Both of those are by Alden Dow, and they really give you a sense of the variety in his architectural vocabulary. Anyways, we felt as if people, if they came to the conference, got a good dose of Michigan modernism and began to embrace it as much as we did. By the way, in case you don't know it, Michigan has a global position in terms of modernism because of the auto industry, because of Cranbrook, because of architectural schools such as that at the University of Michigan, such as functioning architects such as Albert Kahn and Minoru Yamasaki and others who were working in the community. Michigan, and particularly Detroit, is a center of modernism, and it's recognized globally. If you don't know that, you should recognize the importance of what we have. We are in Kalamazoo in 2020. The ill-fated Kalamazoo Conference was our 40th annual statewide preservation conference. We were pulling out all the stops for our 40th anniversary. It was scheduled for May 14th through the 16th of 2020. Well, obviously, the whole thing was derailed. We already had the conference brochure out. Registrations were coming in. Speakers were getting ready, and the pandemic hit. The state was closed down, and of course, we couldn't do it. I look at the communications about that particular time, and we actually had a conversation as a board that maybe we should just push this conference out by, quote, a few weeks. This virus will come and go. It will pass. Well, obviously that did not happen. So we planned it again to be in person. That didn't happen. So we finally took it virtual. It was our first virtual event. It was okay, though. All the speakers stayed. All our donors stayed. Obviously, we couldn't do the tours, but we did do one of them. But we held it on September 21 and 22, and we've been Zooming ever since. Note that the 2021 conference, we just went straight to virtual. We had the brochure and everything. It looked, in terms of media coverage and such, very much the same. But that conference, which was titled Connections, was planned to be virtual from the start. It worked well. We had good turnout. We were back for the first time in person in Holly in 2022. And Holly was a wonderful community to be hosted in. Next to our 2011 conference, which was in Saugatuck Douglas. Saugatuck Douglas, I noted there in the text, has a combined population of 2,243 as of the 2020 census. Holly was the next smallest community with just under 6,000 people to host the conference. We're big. We're a large, medium-sized. We're a medium-sized conference. We sort of take over the whole town because our people are all over. They're wandering, looking at buildings, taking photos. Just as in Saugatuck Douglas, at every place you look, there was somebody with an MHPN bag. In Holly, our conference headquarters was a school complex that had just gone online, 2 school buildings from 1912 to 1928 that had been adaptively used as a conference center. We were the first conference that was in it. They had had weddings, but not conferences. We were thrilled to be back. And footnote, it didn't become a super spreader. We were happy for that. We just finished the conference on Mackinac Island. It was a blast. Hope you were there. If you weren't, you'll have to read about it. We used as our conference headquarters Mission Point Resort, which is a very historically significant structure. That's where the moral rearmament programs were started. They built the resort, most of the buildings. They built the sound stage. It was there for 10 years. It has now been turned into a wonderful resort on the Sunrise side of the state. And it is felt to be the quieter side of Mackinac Island. A fragile balance was our theme. It was a beautiful conference, just a beautiful conference. And now we're back to Kalamazoo, which is great. We knew we were going to come back. We didn't take back any of our deposits or anything from back in 2020. So we're just sort of recreating what we did. All new speakers, all new title, everything, but the structure of it will remain the same. The tours will remain the same. This is our 44th annual conference, and the theme this year is the collaborative spirit. The conference, as I said, has a lot embedded in it. We've got all the sort of usual parts. We've got the welcome from the mayor. We have the annual meeting of our membership. We've got in-seat sessions, always between 25 and 30 in-seat sessions. I want to note for anybody who is an architect or a planner who's on the session today, all of our sessions are approved for continuing education credits. We go through the exercise of getting those approved by AIA and AICP. If you come and use the conference well, you can fulfill about 60% of your required credits from our conference alone, and plus you get a wonderful dose of preservation. So we do in-seat sessions. By the way, the tours also get accredited. Our tours, which are always fabulous, we do them by foot and on boat and bus. We've been on trolleys. There's a chain ferry there in the upper left in Saugatuck. We used kayaks up in Marquette. We've biked around Flint. Just give us a place to go, and we will get there for a great tour. And we always have great tour guides. We have our annual keynote address for 2024 in Kalamazoo. We've just gotten confirmed Quentin Messer, who is the executive director and CEO of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. We're very pleased to have him with us. Nice, high profile annual speaker. We also have some key programs for historic district commissioners. Michigan Historic Preservation Network used to be called the Michigan Historic District Commission Network because we were founded by our historic district commissions. So we have changed our name to reflect our broader perspective, but we still do a lot of programming specifically for our historic district commissioners. And now in Michigan, we've got well over 75 communities that have established their protective ordinances and seated their commissions under the state enabling legislation, Public Act 169 of 1970. So I always get a good turnout for that. We have a good marketplace. And I don't mean it's just like spiritware and mugs, you know, although you can see those in the lower right. The high point of the marketplace is the used book sale. If you are a person who has been told they must clear out their books before they can buy anymore, your books end up with us. Architecture books, only architecture, history, any related field. But if you're a young person establishing your own library, this is a place to come and buy your books. So we have the quarter ton used book sale, fresh books every hour. We put out fresh books from underneath the table every hour so that you have to keep coming back to see what's come out. And we also have like t-shirts and stuff like that. And additionally, we've made a point of using the conference for other activities that can serve you. For example, we have the vendor showcase, which allows you to meet with vendors of products, services in the field of preservation. You can get to know them, talk with them, rather than just doing an exchange of email. We invite many of our partners to add content, not only to the program that's presented, but to attract audiences. I had trouble updating the slide because there are so many partners that we have at this point, but this is a good representation of the groups with which we work. We have an awards reception and ceremony. It's about 30 years old, so it has a very long term reputation already. This is one of the nicest evenings that we get. It's not only a good party, but the spirit and the good feelings are so much there because the people you see getting awarded the awards have been in the trenches saving a building or passing a piece of legislation or spending an entire productive lifetime doing volunteer work in preservation. The good spirits of the program are very evident. We also do a VIP reception. It's private by invitation only. It's for those people who have been very supportive of the MHPN, not only in terms of their time, but of their riches. And we always are in a private home or some very special place for the VIP reception that's before the conference starts. Here's some images from that. We thank our leadership. We invite everyone who hosted from the host community, their governmental officials. We always get some senators and reps who come. It's a reception that does well for us each year. Our members are at the heart of the conference. They create our tours. They chair our sessions. We have a big core of volunteers. By the way, if you want to sign up and be a volunteer, that's a very or reduced price way to come to the conference because we pay for your registration. You just need to get yourself there and have room and board, but we cover your registration, food and registration. We give volunteers tasks that draw them into our committee activities. Yeah, there's some boring tasks, like stuffing the participant bags is not fun, but working registration, meeting our participants, working in the marketplace, working in the vendor showcase, helping set up, helping strike. These are all volunteer activities that they're not only fun, but they weave you into the organization itself. Many of our volunteers and also our scholars become members, become leadership within the organization over time. President Denise McGean, that just stepped down a few years ago, she started as a volunteer. She worked her way through the board and our officerships, and she ended up being our president for the 40th anniversary celebration. Our scholars, we have 6 endowed scholarships now, and also we usually for each conference get another 4 or 5. So we give out 10 to 12 scholarships. That pays for everything, your registration, your room, your board, everything. And we also have a special scholarship that will cover gas money if you need that. So our scholars are very popular at the conference. They're introduced right at the beginning and everybody like nabs them during the course of the conference. Tell us about yourself kind of thing. So they have some good networking that takes place for them. Moving on from the conference, we do educational programming. We have a commitment, and it says so on our tax returns, that we are an educational organization. And we do have a deep commitment to provide educational programming throughout the year, such as these webinars. one of our most popular programs is the Historic District Commissioner Training. I already mentioned that there are over 75 communities in Michigan that have local protective ordinances, commissions, and historic districts that they govern locally. Those commissioners always can use training, not only to understand Public Act 169 and the role that they play in local preservation activities, but to give them a sense on how to run a good meeting, how to deal with issues as they come up, how to work with the city to get backup for the decisions made by the commission, how to go through an appeal if necessary. And we see going back to communities every few years because it's a matter of course that you're going to have new commissioners literally every year. We have both a beginning historic district commissioner training and then an advanced training. And we've been doing those since whatever Shao-Han said during my introduction. We do these monthly webinars. We've been doing these, they started during the pandemic, they were necessary to do. But the last time I gathered a statistic, about 40 of our 83 counties in the state of Michigan are represented by people who participate in the webinars. So we have quite a broad draw. The topics go from hands-on to how-to scholarly topics to a session such as this. It's just informational. And I know from talking with people, there are many who and I'm one of them, I tune in on this Thursday each month, no matter what the session is, because I figure I'm going to see some colleagues, learn something new, and learn something more about the state of Michigan and the preservation activities that we're doing. We also have the MHPN YouTube channel. Not only has the webinars up on it, but a lot of our other programs that have been videotaped over time and things like that. What's pending right now in terms of our historic preservation programs is that with the staff having been reduced during the pandemic from 6.5 people down to 2, and then our volunteers and our board and everything, it's been hard to conduct the preservation programs because you have to book them and you have to register people and you have to make them happen. So we are hoping that more than anything else, we get back some of our hands-on traits trainings. The most popular one is the window rehabilitation training that we've done for years, and we've got ready volunteers to do them, but it needs a staff person to give the continuity, to book it, plan it, pay for it, do the contracts, get the people, have registration, make it happen, do the follow-up. You can't do that when you have no staff. But when window rehabilitation trainings are up and functioning, we've got a very good 4-hour morning session. We've got a two-day rehab workshop. We have had a 2-week session, which churns out people who can then market themselves as people who do window restoration. And if you're plugged into the community, the preservation community at all, you know how in demand window preservation and window retrofitting is. We've got any number of people, particularly who did the 2-week rehab course, the last one, who have gone on to establish businesses, and they are in constant demand. Next, we do an Historic Resource Council directory. That directory just had its 25th anniversary, so we've been putting it out for 25 years. And that is the annual directory of preservation professionals in the state. It's the go-to resource for developers or property owners or anyone who needs to find professionals who are accustomed to working with historic buildings and are close enough and know their resources enough to work well with a project that you might have. So the people who are represented in the directory are architects, archaeologists, engineers, general contractors, trades contractors, craftspeople, developers, preservation organizations. There are also photographers and people who do peripheral activities to the preservation community, but you will find them in the directory. By the way, we do a hard copy issue of this because some people like a hard copy at their desk, but it's also online for you to use. We do other publications as well. Again, from the pandemic, we are not at full steam on doing publications. But in addition to the HRC directory, which I just mentioned, we have the Michigan Historic District Commission training manual that we use at the commissioner training workshops. It's a very comprehensive view of how to function under Public Act 169, the state enabling legislation, and how to make good, solid local decisions about preservation. We also have a series of studies that we've done over the years that have to do with the economic benefits of historic preservation. Sometimes that sort of economic analysis is exactly what you need to take to your city fathers and mothers to have them understand that preservation contributes to economic vitality and sense of place. We're about due to do an update. We'll see if we've got the manpower to do that. We have done the annual report, be it pandemic or not, which then celebrates everything we've done during the course of the year. And we are doing network news. You're about to get an issue week after next that keeps you up to date on things that are happening in the state. Next, we do local, state, and federal advocacy. We send a contingent to Washington all the time to support nationwide preservation legislative initiatives. You can see the national capitol in the background. To the upper left, that we're in the office of Jeff Irwin, our legislator Jeff Irwin. You can see the state capitol in the back. We meet with our legislators, whether we've got some active legislation or not, just to tell them what we do and to offer our assistance. And it is surprising how, after meeting with a legislator, when they have a constituent that has a problem that has been brought to their attention, they're working with it, but they also reference the usefulness of communicating with the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. The other two photos are local legislative efforts. We get involved in many of them, but we do not commonly go on the street with the local participants. In the lower left, that's one of our most recent local advocacy efforts. It was a heart bombing. The people that you see there are concerned about the potential of the demolition in Livonia of a mid-century modern library, stunning library, designed by Gunnar Burkhartz. We've got Burkhart's material around the state, and he's come into his own as a modernist of great note. And here in Livonia, they have this stunning library, and it's just potentially being written off. So the community has been making the point that it needs to stay, and it certainly is adaptively reusable. And in the upper right, or on the right-hand side, those are people on the picket line in Chelsea when they were about to lose a downtown building that was lost. Sorry. We do state legislative initiatives. We really put a lot of our person power behind that. In 1999, and that was part of Shahan's introduction to me, in 1999, we passed the first Michigan investment tax credit. It was a good program. And as you can see there, for every dollar that we spent, it generated $11 in direct economic impact. In 2011, it was eliminated by Governor Snyder. He didn't target our legislation, but rather he, as a governor, did not feel that tax credits and things like that were appropriate when revitalizing economically a state. But it certainly put our preservation activities down a few notches. We worked the following 10 years, and finally we have gotten the credits back. It was Act 343 that was passed in December of 2020. The credit again is established. It's a 25% investment tax credit that you can apply toward certified rehabilitation expenses. It was passed resoundingly convincingly in the House and Senate. We currently are working on some amendments to it to improve it. The key one being the 2020 Act limited the amount of credits available to 5 million. when the application process opened online, it had to be closed in 5.5 hours because all the credits were gone. That indicated the pent-up need for these 4 projects that are very good and do turnaround in many communities that would not happen if it wasn't for the credit. So the biggest amendment that we're proposing, and we have legislative support for this, is $100 million ceiling to the available credits. That would so get us back to the landscape we had before. We'll be reaching out to you in terms of legislative support. Not yet. The amendments aren't back yet. Next, we hold preservation easements. Easements, as you may know, a contract between a property owner and the MHPN, where the property owner grants to the MHPN property rights to the facade, sometimes significant interior spaces, but the facades of the building. And then the MHPN in turn protects that key historic feature in perpetuity. The property owner potentially can claim a charitable deduction, and there can be reduction in their property taxes because the value of the property is reduced by the value that was placed on the easement that is held. We have a whole program on that. That's the shortest of shorthand summaries of what preservation easements are. We hold 26 easements, and they can be as large as an easement such as we have on the book catalog. That's the largest building we hold an easement on. But many of them are smaller properties. In the upper left is Suncrest Farm, which is in South Lyon. In the upper right is the Dougherty Mission House, which is up near Traverse City. In the lower left is Bowers Harbor Inn, which is also in the Traverse City area out on the peninsula. And in the lower right is one of several easements that we hold in the city of Marshall. Next, we have a revolving loan fund. And you can see in the ads here, we're saying there's still money for you because after the tax credits ran out last year in 5.5 hours, people were, grumbling. But we have money that we can loan out through our revolving loan fund. We hold invested a revolving loan fund. From the interest earned, we give out these loans. We inaugurated the revolving loan fund in 2013, so it's not really old, but it's up and functioning. Took a hit to the stomach during the pandemic. Projects just finished up and they were done. So I've noted there in 2019, right before the pandemic, we had awarded 180,000 in loans. Then they just sort of finished and were not replenished. We just made our first post-pandemic pre-development loan. It's a $75,000 pre-development loan to the fire hall in Munising. So that is a fascinating project because first it's in the Upper Peninsula, and second, it is a all-female development firm that is doing the work. And third, the fire hall, it's in a National Register district. It's contributing to the district, but it's a very modest building. We like to tout a project like that because there are many people who still think, oh my God, the project has to be a treasure to warrant restoration or getting a loan or using a credit. No, it can be the kind of resource that simply is important to your community. It may be modest. There's no doubt about that. And we're happy to work with you. Next, we do preservation partnerships, a variety of styles of them. This is far too long a conversation to have, but here are a couple slides. Back in 2009, we worked with project developers and our legal counsel to develop the MHPN Tax Credit Investment Program. We participate in programs that are using the tax credit, and it enables the owners to fill funding gaps in their projects. That would not happen but for the involvement of the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. these are great projects. They would not happen except that they are structured this way and factor in the ownership position of an entity like the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. So here are a few examples of projects. Here's the Marshall Street Armory in Lansing, 1924 building that was made into office space. Here's the Richter Brewery, which is also known as Lofts on Ludington in Escanaba, 1901. It became apartments, and I have integrated a little photo in the lower left. These are the coolest apartments because look at the windows at the very top. These are 2-story apartments in Escanaba, looking out over the water. They're stunning. They're absolutely stunning apartments. We were involved in the revitalization of the historic Bell building, which was done by Neighborhood Housing Services. It's a 1929 building that was done by Smith and Schmidt-Grills. On the right, you see the J.W. Knapp Company, fabulous modernist structure. 1937 to 39, that is now retail space in downtown Lansing rather than being destroyed. You'll see if you come to Kalamazoo in 2024, a project like the Metropolitan Center, which is part of the Haymarket Historic District. That's on the right, the upper level, and then from one of the apartments in the lower right. And we played this role with the David Whitney building in Detroit the building is from 1915. It's a Burnham building. I've added this slide because we also do the fall benefit. This is not in the category of giving you programmatic support. It's in the category of just letting you have a good time with us. The annual fall benefit, it's coming right up. We've done it for 29 years straight, and it's a party, and you come and you're with a bunch of people. You don't have to talk with them about the meaning of preservation. Like, everybody gets it, and the food is good, and the auction is fun, and we just have a very good time together, and you absolutely must come. By the way, there's sort of like a secret. We have scholarships to the fall benefit. It's not the kind of scholarship as a student that you would put on your resume, but it's a very important kind of scholarship. We pay for students to come from the EMU and the U of M programs. Come to this party, learn how to enter a group of preservationists, and tell other people about yourself, and exchange your business cards, and get to know people in the field from a social level. And we do a little briefing with the students beforehand because many of them are quite nervous to come to an event like this. But then it's not unusual at the end of an evening for one of our students to come up to me and like very proudly hold up a little stack of business cards that they've picked up from people. And then we talk about how you do some follow-up. You're not asking for favors right away. You just do a follow-up email and say, I liked talking with you at the fall benefit. I hope to see you again soon. That's all. So it is a scholarship, skills learned. So we've been at a phenomenal variety of places for the fall benefit. We were at the GAR, Grand Army of the Republic Hall in 2012. That was by far the most, let me rephrase that. By far, that was the least restored building we have ever been in for the fall benefit. Active construction site, chain link fence around the property, porta-johns out, and it was freezing. No heat in the building. That's why you see everybody with their coats on. But we had a blast. The developers doing the project strung construction lighting throughout the building so that we could go see it. We had our auction. We had a great bar. We normally do beer and wine. I think we had a little bit more out on the table this time. It was really fun, particularly the porta-johns. Sometimes they're much glossier. In 2018, we were in the Masonic Temple, which is a fabulous Gothic building from 1920, built between 1920 and 26. That's quite a different event. You can see everybody in their suit and ties. It's much more formal than when we were at the construction site for the fall benefit. They give you a sense of how varied our sites are. Now, coming right up, we're going to be at the Mercado and Plaza in Mexican Town in this year, 2023. It's a Sunday, October 15th. The event itself, it runs from 5 till 8:30. Before it, between 3 and 5, we're using the Detroit Bus Company with those fabulous buses to do a bus tour around Southwest Detroit to give you a context. It's optional. We would love to have you come. The RSVPs are due by October 1st. What I want to say about the Mercado and Plaza in Mexican Town, you'll see it's a contemporary building. It was built in the early 70s. We don't shy away from using contemporary buildings that speak to us as historic buildings of the future. The important thing about this property is that if you haven't been to Mexican Town for a while, you really should go. It has the traditional streetscapes and the businesses and the feeling that you'll remember from before or whenever you were there earlier. But they also have some urban planning that's so apparent on the street. This particular complex of buildings, the Mercado and Plaza, and some buildings immediately around it, were designed by Tom Heff, who is a very well-known architect. He hasn't worked a lot in Michigan, but he was brought in by the Mexican Town Community Development Corporation to do some urban planning for him. He was with the firm of Tang and Associates. I actually set it to my side here so I wouldn't forget. This is a building you really want to see. It's drenched in light. It's wonderful building materials. It faces west, which means you see out over the expressway that slashed through the middle of Mexican Town. It's a moving site because it not only just recognizes what happens, looks over the bridge and such, but there is the Bagley Street Bridge, which has the audacity to cross pedestrians across the full width of the expressway. Like, all right, folks, you may have slashed us in two as a neighborhood in the 1960s, but we are still a cohesive community on both sides of the expressway. Anyways, do come. We really want you to come. This is going to be the same kind of great party we always have. So in closing, this is good. Timing is good. We're a very good organization. We have run our programming uninterruptedly for 43 years. We made it through the pandemic. That's more than a lot of our peers can say. We have financial assets sufficient enough to give out loans and do programs. We have no debt. We're just about ready to pay off the mortgage of our own office, which is the 1915 comfort station for the interurban trolley system. It's located in Old Town Lansing. We've got great board members. We've had good leadership. It's just like a good organization. And that's been recognized. I mean, back in 2007, we won a National Trust Award. That's the photo at the top there. Trustees Award for Organizational Excellence. We won an award from the Historical Society of Michigan. 2010, we were awarded recognition by Michigan Downtowns Conference for our window workshops, which we spoke about. In 2010, we won a Governor's Award for historic preservation activities. And in 2019, we won another Governor's Award for an innovative trades training. And others, you know, should put another bullet down. Our membership and our board, they have loads of recognition. So that's what I wanted to tell you about the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. As you can tell, I am enthusiastic about this organization. So we welcome you to contact us. A little short on staff, but we're there for you. We would like you to join us. If you're not a member, shame on you. You're not a member, you should be. Basic membership is $65 for seniors and students, it's $40. And then we've got other categories for historic district commissions and businesses and things like that. With that, Are there questions? We have 10 minutes here for questions.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
That's a great presentation about our organization, and I really enjoyed hearing about more about the history.
Well, it's not like I don't talk with you like every day, but we normally are just dealing with the issue of the du jour, the issue du jour. We never talk about the organization.
Yeah, so actually in the Q&A box, I do see a question. Okay, first, how do I get my business listed in the Historic Resource Council directory?
Right. Well, what a perfect question, because that will happen. We just finished the directory. The cycle will start again in the first couple months of the new year. We wait until the conference is all set up before we start on the directory because there's so much crossover. We don't want to confuse people. So, Shauhan, you head up the Historic District Directory. Say about when subscriptions will open.
Yeah, it usually happens sometime in February. It will be on our website. It will go out in our newsletter. And if you are really interested, I'm going to put my email address in the chat box. And please email me with your contact information so I will make sure that you receive that information when the campaign starts.
Terrific. We already have some people who are subscribing because if they haven't before and they saw the 25th anniversary version of it, it's a really nice piece. It's a good resource. By the way, for all of you, if you want notification of our programs, just become a member because then we have you within the database and you'll get the newsletter and that will tell you when things are happening and you'll get the notes, you'll get a conference brochure, you'll get notification of a subscription for the Historic Resource Council directory. That's your key to being a part of the organization is membership.
Okay, and next question. Janet, could you talk a little bit more about the conference session selection process?
Right, of course I can. We're planning the fall benefit, but we're already deeply involved in the 2024 conference. Let me tell you, between the end of the conference in Mackinac Island, there are 4 weeks off before we start on the next conference. And normally we're already well into it even before then, because at the Mackinac conference, we have to announce the following year. So you have to have enough in shape that you can say what date it is. The dates, by the way, and I'm going to look at my little cheat sheet here because when the conferences are overlapping with the fall benefit, I can get the dates confused. We will be in Kalamazoo, and it said that on the slide, from May 9th to the 11th. That's Thursday and Friday, our primary program days. And then Saturday, we work half a day. We normally do commissioner training or something key about archaeology or do a road trip or something like that. About the conference itself and the abstracts and participating and all that, the conference has 3 tracks. The first track is the thematic track that has to do with the theme. And as you saw, it's the collaborative spirit. You don't have a project that has not been collaborative in getting it done. There is not a historic preservation project that is done by one individual. It's always people who help you, people you seek for assistance, groups of people who work together. There's just about anyone who will have a project that they could propose to be at the conference. The second track is informational, and that's where we have sessions on the tax credits, sessions on other development activities, legislation that's going through. We also commonly have a 2-part session on packaging your financial stack for an historic preservation project that you might be doing. And we've got terrific experts who come because they're all our members. These are people who do it professionally. It's a very high profile panel for that they do pro bono for us. So do be sure and come to that. That's the informational session or track. The third track has to do with hands-on And you will get demonstrations, some hands-on, although that's hard to do in the classroom setting. But that's where you learn about paint or masonry or retrofitting a building for accessibility, all those sorts of issues. We also have been packaging, this isn't a full track, but rather a group of sessions that are being done for us by the State Historic Preservation Office staff. We enjoy, by the way, an extraordinarily close relationship with the Michigan State Historic Preservation Office because we were founded with the SHPO in 1981. They will be doing 4 sessions that have to do with the SHPO programming. So that will also be at the conference. We may, I even hesitate to say this, but we may, on Wednesday, May 8th of 2024, we may be doing, this is preparatory to doing the 5-year preservation plan with SHPO, a preparatory session, listening session. Where is the field of preservation going? Are we training tradespeople and hands-on craftspeople to be in the pipeline to do the kind of work we do? And then philosophically, I mean, how are we responding to climate change? How are we responding as preservationists to the profound demand for housing at all price points in every part of the state, particularly now that a lot of people don't go to the office anymore. They stay in their communities and work in their homes or at a drop-in center. Those are the sorts of questions. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. We better have a good facilitator for it because most of the time we're hopping with ideas. That may be on Wednesday. Yeah, I think that's what I need to tell you about the conference. And then come, put it on your calendar.
Yeah, and I also included the link to our conference page in the chat box, so please check that out. And next question, Janet, what's your favorite part about the fall benefit?
Well, because I'm frequently the planner of it, it's usually when it's over. I'm always glad when it's over. But no, I like it because I kind of alluded to this in the show. It's a party. Preservationists don't party enough. I mean, we're always in the trenches. We're always being questioned by people, you know, those old buildings are energy hogs. If I hear one more person say that to me, I'm just going to like shove a sock in their mouth. You come to the event and you don't have to like crawl around in your basement trying to figure out where the moisture's coming in. Just come and have a party with people. And they're by and large people we all know. So that's the one part. Food's always good, by the way. Food's always good. And we always have a generous amount of beer and wine, although we don't really have a big drinking group. Auction is fun. It's just a very nice evening. And we always do the enrichment ahead of time. We always have the tour ahead of time. So if you feel guilty about taking a night off, you don't have to feel guilty because you can come and get some educational content ahead of time. And then the other thing that I mentioned that I like very much, I love having the students there. They have a good time, sometimes kind of eye-opening for them. And they're the ones that sell in the following classes. Students go to the party. If you get asked to go to the party, go to the party.
Okay, thank you, Janet. I think we are right on time. Thank you so much for your time giving this presentation, and I hope everybody enjoyed it and learned more about us. And if you want to know what we're doing, please go to our website at www.mhpn.org. And this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be available in a few days. You will receive an email when it is available. And I would like to announce our next webinar. It's scheduled for September 29th, and this is about lead paint. Actually, we got a lot of inquiries to having a webinar about this topic, so we hope to see a lot of people there on September 29th. And for registration, please go to our website, preservation events, workshops. And
That's Sharon Ferraro, isn't it?
yes,
Sharon? Yes.
Ferraro will be the speaker.
She's great.
Yes. So really looking forward to our next webinar, and thank you everybody for participating, and thank you, Janet, again for your time. And
Thank you.
hope you all have a great day. Bye.
Bye.